What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast interview. First off, thank you so much for tuning in, for checking out the show. Your support is massively appreciated. The only reason that this show exists is because of all of your amazing support. So we truly appreciate your support. I truly appreciate your support. Make sure that you're sharing the show with as many people that you feel would benefit from the show. The goal is to always grow this show and go out there and have a big impact. Real quick though, before we jump into today's podcast, I want to plug our sponsors that make all of this possible. Our first sponsor is my personal 90-day mastery bootcamp. This is my real estate agent mentorship training program. It's a group training platform. This way it makes it extremely affordable for you. Inside this program, however, I am unpacking my entire playbook. I'm walking you through step by step everything that I do inside my real estate business, everything that I've done, everything I've learned in my 12-plus year career with selling over 5,000 homes, with selling over $1 billion in real estate. And I walk you through step by step exactly what I've done, how I built what I've built, and what I'm doing today to go out there and create the success. But don't mistake the low cost for low value. This is an insanely in-depth, step-by-step program where I'm walking you through, again, step-by-step on how I go out there. My team sells 1 to 2 homes every single day in today's market, continue to grow my business year after year, and how I've been able to exit from selling, exit from actually day-to-day involvement in my real estate team, and create an epic, amazing real estate team that not only sustains but grows without my involvement. So whatever level that you're at, whether you're a brand new real estate agent, you're an individual high-producing agent that wants to expand and create a team, or if you already have an amazing team, or you're a broker owner that's looking to step up your internal training, looking to step up your systems, your processes, your tracking, make your business more predictable, this program is absolutely for anybody that's serious about leveling up inside their business. So check us out, www.90daymastery.com. Make sure you use promo code LIVEMASTERY, all one word, all together, all caps. That's going to get you the biggest discount on 90daymastery.com. You're going to see tons of testimonials on their video testimonials, what's included in the program, the future dates of the program. I do several of these every single year, so make sure to check us out and make sure to jump inside that program ASAP. My next sponsor that makes this show possible is perfectstormnow.com. If you're a real estate agent and you are looking for a lead generation machine website backed by an insanely powerful CRM system that allows you to convert your leads to appointments at the highest possible level, manage all your tasks, make sure that you're effective and efficient as you possibly can be inside your business, transaction management component, all of that stuff. It is hands down by far the most effective and affordable real estate website and CRM program that exists out there in the industry. It's what I use to go out there and sell 650 plus homes every single year, and the system is gnarly. If you're signing up for that program, make sure to use promo code MASTERY, PSN, all caps, all one word, all together. That'll save you the $200 registration fee and get you a great discount. Our last sponsor is REO University. So I teamed up with a good buddy of mine who is the most knowledgeable dude, hands down, that I've ever met when it comes to REO properties. This guy used to work for the banks directly as an asset manager, and he developed so many of the systems that you see that asset managers and asset management firms and banks use today. This guy sold over 11,000 properties, foreclosure properties, as an asset manager. And he and I teamed up with my experience of working with over 35 banks in my career, selling thousands of REOs, plus his experience. We've created just an insane program. Again, REO University, the website is www.REO University. It's a one-time payment for $997, or you can split that up into 3 monthly payments. This is not a live boot camp like my 90-Day Mastery boot camp. This is something that you have access to instantaneously. We'll walk you through exactly how to go out there and get in with the banks. So how to get the business, but then how to service that business at the highest level, how to go out there and complete BPOs, how to complete cash for keys, how to make sure that you're insane at your valuations, how to go out there and make sure that your asset managers are winning and hitting their goals, key indicators you need to look for, and more. There's 22 in-depth, just amazing, powerful modules that will teach you how to become an REO machine inside your real estate business. Now, if you're like me, I don't want my business to ever be in a vulnerable position, right? I don't care if it's a good market, bad market. It doesn't mean that my business needs to be good or bad. My business can always be great. During a market crash, right? There's no such thing as if the market's going to crash. It's just a matter of when, right? But again, you don't need to put yourself in a vulnerable position. You can make sure that your real estate business is 100% recession proof, and go out there and, of course, generate business, do a ton of business regardless of what's happening in the marketplace. And this is exactly how you go out there and do it. And we walk you through step by step. So check us out, REOMasteryUniversity.com. You can learn more about the program, hopefully register for the program, jump on in. This price will not last long, right? We just created this product, rolled it out several months ago, and just getting in the hands of the consumer, and people are having a lot of amazing success. So again, check us out, REOMasteryUniversity.com. All right, again, you guys, thank you so much for watching this show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to share the show. Make sure to comment. Like us on YouTube. Leave some positive comments. We love hearing back from you guys, and love getting your feedback. Keep kicking ass, and let's jump on into today's interview. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smithy with another GSD Mode podcast, where every single week we're interviewing top real estate agents, top entrepreneurs, and straight up top badasses out there dominating their spaces. So people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves, for their families, as well as have a big impact on others. And that's why so many of our amazing guests agree to come on the show and share their story and their knowledge and wisdom with all of us. So today, you guys, another amazing special guest in their show. Our guest today is a real estate investor, real estate agent, property manager, specializes in working with investor clients, and as well as helps managing their assets. I believe today is managing over an $11 million portfolio out of Texas. So really stoked and honored to have Joseph Gozlan on the show, my friend.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. I mean, one thing that, we haven't had, we've had, a decent share of real estate investors that will come on that, but they're strictly on the investment side, not on the management side, and then we have a lot of, your traditional residential real estate agents that, are focused on buyers and sellers, more of your traditional production. We haven't had a lot of successful property managers on the show, and it's something I get asked questions about constantly, right? It's one of these things where it could be, even if you're a real estate agent that has the traditional, work with the traditional buyer seller part of your business, right? Having the management side just creates a lot of more opportunities. There's so many synergies there. You've got the monthly residuals that are coming in. So I'm really stoked to have you on and just pick your brain on how you built what you built and how you're continuing to expand. But before we get into that, man, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here, because you had a big IT background and other things. So I'm just intrigued on how this started in the first place. Like how'd you wind up in the real estate space?
So just before we get started, a clear distinction here: we don't do property management; we do asset management.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
We can talk about the difference in a few minutes. But my journey started like a lot of other people as an accidental landlord and with Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? I kind of have a love-hate relationship with that book, right? You love it because it got you started. You hate it because it brings so much competition to our market, right?
Yeah.
So, but it was a great book. Me and my fiancée at the time, my wife today, kind of bought a property to live in. That was back home in Israel, where I was born and raised. I was a lieutenant at the IDF. And as you mentioned, I went to engineering school, IT, and we bought a property, and it was just too big for us. We were just too, a young couple, no kids, living in a one-bedroom apartment, and they were looking at a huge thing. So we said, okay, maybe we'll just wait a few years and just rent it out. When we're ready, we'll move into it. And that's how we got started. That's where you start seeing that residual income come in and the tax benefits and all the other great advantages real estate has. It kind of got us hooked.
Yeah.
And then in 2007, I was lucky to relocate to the United States through my workplace in IT. And then my wife and I were looking around. It's like the big crash of 2007-8. And it's like, that's probably the best market to invest in that we will ever be in our lifetime, right? So we sold the property back home and we brought the money here and started with single family houses, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So at what point though, because you moved here and relocated because of your job, right? So, but at that same time, I mean, you're starting to see the power and the value of personally investing. But how did the transition happen? Where you went from, they decided, hey, I'm going to go full-time into this gig, right? Leave, my other job, leave, the comfort, if you will, of the corporate world and just jump into this full-time.
So that transition actually only happened this year for me.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So we invested at 09, 10, 11, and it was doing great. And then the market started getting heated up and we had kids, life happens, and we kind of lost focus for a little bit. But then I had a trigger event back in 2015 where kind of like I had to spend $40,000-$50,000 out of my own pocket just handling life in the properties, right? Roofs and foundations and plumbing and all these things. And I realized that's not scalable, right? And what is scalable? How do I get out of the rat race? And multifamily is where we figured out is the right way. And that's where we started our journey with multifamily. That was the transition that helped us get out of the rat race and completely focus on what we do today, which is real estate.
Yeah, no, love it, man. Well, and you've done it right. You've done it smart. I mean, the cool thing is, with all of this is you can, just like you've done where, you can have your career, if you will, right? That's also bringing in capital to help you reinvest, right? And then you have that security as you're building this up to the point where it makes sense to leave. And, so many people just make that leap blindly. They run out of capital, whatever that may be, and they find themselves right back where they started 6 months into it. So, yeah, I love it, man. So, yeah, walk us through. Okay, so you came to like you said, you had 40 or 50 grand or whatever, and expenses with your other properties that you're managing, and realized, all right, multifamily is the place to go. Which I think most of our listeners get that, and they get the value of multifamily, multiple doors, right, whatever it may be. But a lot of people get intimidated. Like, where the hell do you start? Right? You're looking at much higher values. How did you, once you came to that realization, where did you start, and then how did you make that transition?
So for me, it all starts with education, right? So I went and read all the books and listened to all the podcasts and visited the online forums and did a lot of research of my own, right? Just to try to understand, what is this animal? How does it work? Where do I do things? How do I do things? And then I started building relationship with brokers. And I realized that the multifamily business is a business that's really hard to get into. Right? It's kind of like a big boys club. They don't let anyone in. They'll always treat you suspiciously as a tire kicker. And I had to find creative ways to get broker to pay attention to me. And that's a little tip for a listener, right, that want to get started is get all your financials in order, right? Get the 401k balances and your stock balances and your real estate portfolio, put them all in a nice book. Go to a commercial mortgage broker and tell him to underwrite you, right? And they'll come back and they'll run your financials and say, you know what, we can underwrite you for a loan that is this much or that much, right? Or let's say $1 million loan. And then the next step is to tell them, okay, now do me a favor and talk to all the commercial real estate brokers that you work with and tell them that I'm not a tire kicker. I can get a transaction going. And that opens a ton of doors, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's really how I got started. I started building those relationships through back doors, but I was still not getting very great deals. So I'm the kind of guy that doesn't let things stop him. right? So what I did is say, you know what? I'm a licensed agent. I know how to do farming. I know how to do direct marketing. Let me go source that deal myself. So that's what I did. I did postcards and yellow letters and phone calls, and I talked to multiple owners until I found the one that it was willing to sell to me at a reasonable price. So that's how we got the first one. And even that one, we didn't have enough money to do like a 25% down. So we worked a seller financing deal with him that allowed us to get in at a little bit less than that.
Yep. Yep. Love it. So then, all right. So when we fast forward today, you know, right? Cause I mean, you've got, you know, what is it? 154, 155, you know, units or doors that you're managing. Now are these, you know, cause you talked about asset management, you know, and we can go through the distinction of asset management compared to property management, because I'm sure that you're employing, you know, property managers to help you manage, you know, the assets that you're managing. Are these all self-acquired, or have you gotten to the point where now you're creating strategic partnerships with other investors and you're going into these as with these partnerships?
Yeah, so a little bit of both, really. So some of them are owned by us, me and my wife, by ourselves, and some of it is through what we do, syndications, right? A group investment. So we own and operate 156 units right now. We have actually, at the moment, we have another 97 units under contract. So hopefully by the end of January, we'll have 230 units running and operating. So when you get to a certain scale, right, when we bought 102 unit property, that's about $1.5 million that you need to come up out of pocket for down payments and closing costs and loan fees and so on. So that is where I needed to bring in investors with me into the transaction. Right, and that is where the model starts to shift a little bit. It's no longer what can I get out of this property. It's more of, okay, how do I pay my investors first, and how much can I get them, and then I get paid. So how much am I going to get paid? And this is where I love this business, because real estate allows you to be so creative in so many ways, and multifamily is no different. You can do a lot of creative ways to make money for everyone in multifamily.
Yeah. Now, love it. And with the syndications that, you know, some of these deals that you're doing today, you know, if you could rewind the clocks, you know, would you have started off with the syndication instead of going at it personally? Or do you feel that doing your own, you know, personally funded complexes out there and units out there gave you that experience and street cred that you really needed to then bring to the investors to make you more successful with their money?
So actually, if I could roll back the clock, I would start with a syndication. But for me, I didn't say I don't want to do a syndication for my first one, right? I said I'm looking for a good deal. Doesn't matter if I'm going to find something that I can do by myself, if I can find something medium-sized that I can do with 2 or 3 partners, or if it's something large that I'm going to need more partners and it's going to be a syndication, right? And I tell that to everybody that talks to me and asks the exact same question. It's kind of like, don't limit yourself. Always look at the deal from the perspective of, I'm going to put that much money, that much time, and I'm going to get this much in return. Does it worth my time? Does it worth my money? Right? And if it's a syndication, it's a syndication. If it's a single transaction, it's a single transaction. We bought a smaller property after we did the first syndication, right? They're not mutually exclusive, right? It's about the right deal. So that's that. And in terms of street cred, yes and no. So sometimes when you say you have a 20 unit, it counts some for street cred, but it's not the same thing as running 100 or 200 unit property. Right. So in our case, we had to lean heavily on the experience of our third-party property management company that's been doing that for 35 years and have thousands of units under their management umbrella. Right. And what we do is asset management, and that's where we get into the distinction a little bit. The way the metaphor I give everybody is Olympic athletes. Right. When you have an Olympic athlete, these guys are at the top of their profession, right? It's a top 0.5% of all athletes in the world. But they have coaches too. right? Can their coach run faster than them, throw the ball longer, swim longer distances? No. What the coach brings in is accountability. It's a big picture view. It's dropping the balls that every once in a while inevitably people drop, right? And it's navigating the big boat, right? The captain of the boat is not in the engine room. He is navigating the boat from the bridge. And that's what we do. So we give that 3 to 5% increase in performance to our Olympic athletes. And that's how Olympic athletes bring in the gold.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. So then, I mean, it sounds like when and we'll kind of break these down separately because there's so many different things that need to happen to create success with this, right? I mean, number one, you got to, of course, find the right deal, the right property. You got to be able to go out there and find, if you're doing a syndication, you got to be able to go out there and find these investors that are willing to invest with you. Then, like you said, you got to be able to identify and find a really good, strong property manager. There's a lot of just key things that all need to come together to create this success. So let's maybe start with just the syndication, right? For somebody that's wanting to get involved with this and wanting to, take it to that level, what are some things that have worked for you as far as identifying those relationships and initially even structuring those deals? I got to imagine as your portfolio grows and your reputation grows, those deals can get more weighted on your side, where in the beginning you might take very little and then, right, that might increase with the percentage of ownerships. But for somebody that's starting out and wanting to do this, like, what would your recommendations be to start?
Well, I'd start with finding and building the right team. Real estate is a team sport. So find your property management, find your transaction lawyer, find your securities lawyer, find your commercial brokers, right? Because without that team, you're going nowhere. There's no one person that can do all of it, right? So I'd start with that. Go out and interview 5, 6, 10 property management companies, interview lawyers. Tell them, here, this is what I want to do, what you would recommend, because these are going to be your advocates, but these are also going to be your guardrails, right? And I personally, and like most of your listeners, I'm sure, I'm a very assertive person, an alpha type kind of personality. If I'll have people that will just surround me and say yes, then I'm missing the guardrails. I'm missing the checks and balances. So I had to build a team that tells me, hey, don't do that, or challenges my decisions and asks me the questions that I might have not considered, right? And I can tell you that I've walked away from a property after putting over $10,000 in legal fees and inspection fees because my property management company told me, this is not a good spot, this is not a good economy for the town, walk away. So I walked away. I better lose some money now than to lose a lot of money there, right? And to tie it back to your questions about taking a smaller piece of the pie, the way I look at things is a small piece of the pie is better than a big piece of no pie.
Yep.
That's the way I look at it, which is why partnerships come into play. And yes, you know what? You can do it all by yourself and you'll buy a 20 unit and a few years later you'll buy a 30 unit, maybe get to a 50 unit, but you'll never scale as much as you can scale with bringing in partners, right? So you need those partners. So that's the other thing that you need to do is if you want to consider a syndication, is build those relationships with potential investors. Know who would be willing to back you up. Know who would be willing to take a risk with you, even though it's your first one. Know how to help them understand that whatever areas you're not experienced at, you have found the right team member to compensate for that. Right? And that's really where the hard work is on the first syndication, is getting the people to invest in you, not in the property.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Love it. All right. So then, when it comes to identifying the property management company, because like you said, you've had, you've had them save you from some potential really bad deals, and they're, they're the boots on the ground. They see, they get exposure and bring so much value that most people just think of collecting rent checks, right, to the table. Talk to us about the importance of that, as well as, maybe what advice that you would give when people are looking that don't have a great property manager, looking for to develop that great team. How do you know if they're good or not while you're doing that interview and due diligence process?
Yeah. So you start with there's no replacement for experience. Right? If I'm looking at a property management company that has been in business for 2-3 years versus one that's been around for decades, there's no replacement for experience, right? And especially in multifamily properties, you get into situations where you don't see in single family, right? In your single family house, you will not have possible a gang war, right? You will not have a huge fire that displaces some of the residents, and you still have to figure out where to put them while you have other residents to take care of, right? And all kind of situations where we don't know what we don't know. So that's really where experience is super critical. The mentality of that property management, are they looking at your property as just a few buildings, or are they looking at taking care of the value you bring to the community? And I'm a big believer in karma, right? I believe karma is good for business. And so for me, it was important to find a property management company that treats our residents with respect. And it starts with the simple things like terminology. I didn't say tenants, I said residents. So we treat them as residents. We don't have apartment complexes, we have apartment communities. But it starts with the very simple things of how they talk, how they sound, what are they doing, on top of, like you said, collecting rent and sending a maintenance guy to fix a plumbing leak, right? So make sure that you find a company that tries to build community, that tries to get ties to the city and the environment, that do community events, right? One of the things that we do on our properties, for example, is we, every once in a while, we'll have our on-site manager just go buy a stack of donuts, right? And just stand in the property around 7-8 a.m. when they all leave to their jobs, and just hand them donuts, right? If I get one resident showing up there and saying, "Oh, these guys are so awesome, I'm going to renew my lease," I paid for 10 of those, right there and there, right? So it's about giving because it's coming back, right? And I'll give you another example. When we bought one of our properties, 102 units, right? It was pitch black at night. All the exterior lights were completely broken and off and not functioning. Well, we were there doing due diligence. I saw a nurse leave the property around noontime. Well, when the nurse goes out around noontime, she's coming back around midnight, 1 a.m. Do you think she feels safe coming back? Do you feel she feels safe walking from the parking lot to her apartment, not tripping on anything else, right? That nurse is not walking around the hospital saying, "Hey, everybody, come live with me in my community because it's awesome." She's probably telling everybody, "Yeah, stay away from this place. I'm leaving as soon as I can," right? Versus when we build a community and we build the sense of, "Hey, you're getting taken care of here," then they'll tell their friends, they'll tell their family. And statistically, people that come in through referrals stay longer on the property. And we love that. We love long-term relationship with our residents. And like I said, karma is good for business, right? We today get almost $200 more for a comparable unit from right across the street from us. Right across the street. And it's not like they are horrible and we are so awesome. It's because we bring a lot more value and people are willing to pay for that value.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like, like in the business world, right? Like you can have two companies that have the same product, right? The same processes, the same systems, but this company over here might kick this company's ass, right? Because they have just an unmatched culture and energy and an excitement and whatever with their people. So it sounds to me, if you look at like on a business aspect, like you guys are just going above and beyond to create almost your own culture in that community, right? Where obviously it's paying off huge.
Yeah, of course. And it goes beyond the way we treat our residents. It goes to the way we treat our employees, our on-site managers, our maintenance people, right? We treat them well because we want them to keep their retention high, to keep them with us for longer and build that relationship. Because when we have a manager that's been around for long in the same property, she knows everything. She knows the community, and she can bring more value to our residents than a new manager that get changed and replaced every year.
Yeah.
So we completely believe in taking care of our employees and our residents.
Yeah. Then when it comes to finding properties, you've got another, 90 plus units under contract right now. And, I know that your growth plan is huge, right? For what you guys want to create over the next 5 years. But that's such a competitive space, it's harder and harder to find good deals and better cap rates and other things. I mean, when you're identifying properties, how are you guys having success with that? And are you also looking at, like the example that you gave with the one that was black all night, like, hey, that's a very quick value add that you can do. Are you trying to really identify properties that you can bring in that instantaneous value add?
Yeah, so for us, value add is twofold, right? You can bring in a lot of management play and just bring in good processes, and we can do things better, faster, nicer, more value, right? Than a lot of the other companies out there. That's one thing. The other thing is physical rehab, right? So like you said, we had lights out. We had a clubhouse that was used as a storage. There was no gym on the property, and we created one, right? So we find ways like this, and we put a CapEx budget into that to bring extra value. And when you bring more value, again, it goes back to you can charge more because people are willing to pay when there's more value. In terms of finding properties, it's a very relationship-based business, multifamily. You got to build those and cultivate those relationships with other brokers. We're licensed, right? And we do prospecting ourselves. But I tell all the brokers I work with, I have the acquisition business and we have the brokerage business. They don't have to cross paths. If you find me a deal, I'll be a principal. I don't want to cut from your commissions. I don't want to touch your money. This is your hard-earned money, right? You're protected on that aspect. So my brokers know that if they bring me a deal, they're protected. They're good. And that's really one of the most critical aspects of this business is just build good relationships.
Yep. Love it. On a side note there, are you, in addition to the asset management portion of the business and of course your own personal properties that you have, are you also representing buyers or investors or sellers just in their buy and sell without you being a part of the deal, but just as a realtor representation?
Yeah, we do that too. And it's also because and I tell my investors sometimes that they're buyers, right? We don't have a competition here because we have very strict criteria with very specific long-term goals, right? That basically takes 97% of the properties that we come across and take them off the table. All right. So for that reason, we're not competing with our investors on these things. And when I have a buyer and I know his criteria, he's probably going to get first dibs on things. Also because we have a certain bandwidth. If we have multiple projects going on at the same time, we can't take on. Right? And our sellers, we tell them that we can relate to their needs because we are owners, we are operators, right? It's like buying single families for investment from a realtor that doesn't own any single family as an investment. They usually are not very savvy about the aspects of what the investor needs are. So this is the added value we bring to sellers in our market and in our business. Yeah.
No, I got to imagine that's got to be huge, right? So then, all right. So with what you have in escrow and what you currently, have that you manage, a couple hundred units, And I know in 5 years, I believe I saw that your vision is to scale to like 3,000 units, right? How do you scale that quickly, to that? I'm sure at that point, man, you got to have your processes so dialed in. I mean, how are you able to experience that type of growth?
So one thing I want to make sure that I call out, right? And it's easy to get into the hype and into the growth market that we're in, but we're pretty much at the top of this cycle, right? So one of the most critical things for us as we scale is to make sure that we tap only to off-market deals, that we have really good margins in those deals, that when the market turns, and it's not an if, it's a when the market turns, we're well positioned, right? So, and that's what we do right now, is we scale by finding those opportunities that are not accessible to everybody else. And that goes, it's kind of like a snowball business, honestly. The more you do, the more opportunity comes across your desk. And when you have 100 unit, you'll get a 200 unit. And when you have 200 units, you'll get a 400 unit portfolio, and so on and so on, right? So that's just a snowball business. So the growth is exponential. It's not linear.
Yeah. Yep. Love it. So then, and I love that you brought up it's not a if, it's a when, right? When these market corrections, crashes, whatever you want to call it. And, every bull market is followed by a correction, and we're amongst a pretty long time bull market right now. So yeah, we all know it's coming. None of us have a crystal ball, know when exactly, but we all know.
I wish I had one.
Yeah. But the cool thing about you is you've been through this before, right? And not only did you go through it, it wasn't just like, hey, I got through it, right? You thrived and were able to expand and grow your business. What did you learn during the last market crash? Whether it was from learning through success or learning from a failure, but what are some of those things that you took away from the last market crash that you feel are going to allow you to be that much more successful during the next?
So what happened in 09 and 2010, when we were around here, is there were a lot of good opportunities on the market, but the lending sources dried out. Yeah. So regulations got tightened up. Banks kind of became a lot more, I don't want to say scared, but let's say conservative in their underwriting, and they were all kind of frozen. So the critical piece in the next downturn would be, how do you structure your debt? How do you secure your financing in order to complete a transaction? Because when it's a buyer's market, we'll get to pick which property we want to buy and the price that we want to buy it at. But if we don't do the job right now, if we don't build those relationships with the lenders, if we don't perform to our lenders to show them that, hey, we're good, we're solid, we'll deliver, we have the most conservative underwriting you've ever seen from anyone that shows up at your door, and we also provide and deliver all of the expectations that we've set with our investors, and when the downturn comes in, we'll be the best positioned team to go in and say, okay, our investors trust us. Even though the market crashed, we did not fail to deliver on our projections. So they will continue to invest with us because people still have money, right? And when the market crashes, they want to drive their money away from the market as soon as possible, right? So we will have investors coming in. It's the critical relationship that we're going to have to build with the brokers, the commercial mortgage brokers, and the lenders like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the banks that we work through. That's the key component for the downturn. Yeah. So even if you're in single family, work that relationship with a local bank, find a local credit union, right? Build those relationships. So when the entire bank freezes and start drying up loans, you're still going to be the one getting the loan from them.
Yep. Yep. Love it. And it seems, from at least most investors that I've, talked to, that's been on the podcast or that I've known over the years, just from my experience in real estate, most of the people that got, just punished in the crash were heavy in single family attached, right? And, those conversations like, hey, man, if we weren't so heavy in single family attached, we had more multi-units, we would have been fine. Because multi-units tend to perform better during those hard times because people are they're losing their homes, they need a place to go and whatever that may be. Is that because it sounds like before you had more single family, now it's just full multifamily, was that your experience as well? And is that why the focus is so heavy on multifamily, or one of the reasons?
Yeah. So really, when you look at multifamily historically, it's the last one to get hurt going into a downturn, and pretty much one of the first asset classes to recover from a downturn. And we personally like to invest in the B and C class, right? So apartment complexes has A, B, C, D, right? A is the brand new builds. B is the 10-year-old kind of real, still white collar, young professionals. C is blue collar, and D is what we call war zones, right?
Yeah.
So we stay in the B and C class because when the economy is doing great, D upgrades to C, C upgrades to B, B to A goes out and buys a house, right? When the economy tanks, A downgrades to B, B to C, C to D, right? So if you stay in the B and C class, no matter where the pressure comes in from the top or above, from the top or the below, then you still have that transition of people going back and forth. So even on a downturn, you're pretty much doing well. And the main punishment, as you called it, that single family get in a downturn is that when that property is vacant, you are 100% vacant. You have to pay out of your own pocket the mortgage, the insurance, the property taxes, the commission to the realtor that's going to lease it up for you. You're going to pay all the utilities. You're going to pay everything out of your pocket. When we have a 100-unit apartment community, we can have 10 of them vacant. And there's still enough money not only to pay mortgages and salaries and keep the property well maintained, but there's still enough margin to pay our investors as well. So I get to spread my risk across a lot more units versus one. And even if you have 100 single-family houses, it's still not as easy as having one location, one set of roofs, one set of parking lots, right? And so on. So that's why we kind of transition to multifamily as a reduction of risk, even though it sounds counterintuitive from the outside, but for us, it's a lot less risky than owning a bunch of single family houses.
Yeah. Then, you talked about having very strict margins on the things that you're purchasing. Can you give, again, if one of our listeners or somebody that's watching this is wanting to get involved in multifamily, like give an idea of, kind of what those margins look like so they can, when they're doing an acquisition, they can make sure that those margins aren't too thin where they get themselves in trouble.
So this really is highly dependent on the project, how many units and so on. But the one thing that you need to understand is that this is not how you model an acquisition of a single family house, right? You can do the thumb rules, right? The single family has the 1%, the 2%, right? Multifamily has a thumb rule for the 50%, right? Total income less total expenses. Expenses would be about 50%. That will be your NOI. But when you look at a property this size, you got to really get into the details, right? And there's a lot of formulas out there, and there's a lot of calculators waiting for you, a new investor out there. But it's critical to understand the formulas behind whatever these things are generating. And I'll give you an example. Contracted services, right? So landscape and pest control and all that. So there's formulas that says on average, the industry would be at $100 a door, $150 a door for contracted services. Well, I've seen two different properties, about 150 units each. One of them was sitting on 2 acres of concrete in the middle of the city, right? Barely any grass, barely any trees or bushes. Their contracted services would be something like $30 per door, right? But I've also seen 150 units on 17 acres of land. That property had a full-time person just for landscape,
Yeah.
Their contract services is dramatically more than that. So yes, somehow they average out at about 100 a door, but you can't just blindly take industry averages and think everything is going to be awesome. So the best tip is dig down into the numbers and understand what every number means, where is it in the formula, and how does that apply to the specific property. Now, in terms of margins, I always treat it the way, what happens if tomorrow 2008 happens again, right? So if I buy a property and let's say it's 95% occupied, they have 5% vacancy, I'm not going to assume that in the next 6, 7, 10 years, it's going to be 5% vacancy, right? I'm going to underwrite for 10% vacancy. So when something happened and, it hit the fan, I'm ready for it. I'm not surprised. And all those years where I am 5% vacant, it's cherry on top. I can underpromise and overdeliver to my investors. So really, if I could give a single advice to someone that wants to do multifamily, is underpromise, overdeliver.
Yep. Hope for the best, plan for the worst, right?
Exactly.
Now, when you're doing that, if you say, okay, hey, we're going to plan on 10% vacancy, even though right now be at 5%, are you, because every area might be different with their vacancy rates, every property is going to be different. Is that where, again, when you talk about digging deep into the numbers and the financials, is it like, hey, I'm going to, since inception of this complex, let's just say, I'm going to see what their lowest vacancy has ever been. Maybe it's a unit that you're buying that's 15 years old. Like, what's the lowest been? And I'm going to make sure that we're still able to be profitable with the lowest that's ever been.
No, so that really is going to hurt you doing that because circumstances change. But what I like to do is I like to look at everybody in the area, right? And when I say area, I'm not talking about 6 mile radius. I'm talking about the immediate properties that you're going to be competing against, right? What is their class? How nice are they? How vacant they are? We actually go out and shop the properties. So we show up on the property pretending to be potential tenants and ask questions, right? So I don't look like a normal resident in a C-class property and in that environment. So I show up and I say, hey, my wife's niece is coming to the area. She's going to school here, or she got a job here. And I would say, I don't like to be here, but I was told to come here, so I'm coming in. Give me some information. And they start opening up to you, say, hey, she's 20 years old, single. Is that a safe area? Is that a safe area would be really weird coming out of me, right? Or coming from a guy that looks like you. But when you phrase it with, oh, she's 20 years old and single, right? They answer more honestly. So we shop the area. We look at everybody else's numbers, and there's ways to do that, right? Your brokers can get you reports from Yardi and systems like that about the immediate area. And then you start looking at the property history. But we talked about value add earlier. I'm not looking for great performing properties. I'm looking for the ones that are not doing very well so I can help them do well, right? So if I look at what they've been doing and I believe that that's what I wowould be doing, I wouldn't buy anything, right? We like to buy the ones that are poorly performing.
Yep. Love it. So then, I know, you're based in Texas. Do you see yourself expanding out of Texas or where do you see that going?
Yeah. So we're actually are looking at areas that are close to Texas, right? So Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Kansas City are all locations that we've paid more attention to in the last year or so. Texas is overheated. To be honest, right? Especially the major four, Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio. So we're looking at secondary markets in Texas, and we're looking at other cities in other areas. Our rule of thumb right now is about an hour and a half flight away from Dallas, right? If I can be on the property and back and have a full meaningful day on the property, then I can get back the same day, then that falls in our radius.
Yep. Love it. So then, when we first started, you mentioned that you started, really through education. And so if somebody's watching, listening to this that wants to get started but knows that they need to have that education, You know, like what, because there's so much information out there, and everybody today, especially with Facebook the way it is, everybody's a guru, you know, right?
Yeah.
Where do you recommend for people to start, or where are some places for people to start that they can go seek to make sure they're getting the right information, the right education?
Yeah. So I love the fact that you did guru with air quotes here. And I would highly recommend that everybody be conscious about the business model of those gurus, right? It's okay to walk in and pay whatever the guru is asking for to get the education, and they will give you good education, but you got to understand what their business model is, right? If a certain group, and I don't want to name anyone here, right? You got to pay tens of thousands of dollars for their training, and they promise you're going to make a deal in a year. Their business model is to get you to do a deal that year, not to get a great deal, not to do a good deal, but to do a deal. Because the last thing they can afford in their business model is you walking around saying, I paid tens of thousands of dollars and I got no deal out of it. Right? So as long as you walk in eyes wide open and you understand the business model, then you can put the guardrails that you need to put and understand that they're going to put some rosy pictures in front of you, and they're going to draw a lot of rainbows and lollipops for you. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, right? So that's that. Now, other than that, there are certain podcasts out there in online communities, like Bigger Pockets is a great community that I'm on a lot, and I know a lot of other very experienced people. That's our way to kind of pay back, right? When I was new, I was asking questions. People helped me. Rod Cliff was kind of, now has his own group, but when I was reaching out to him over a year and a half ago, he took the time and he had a phone call with me, even though I was not paying him anything, right? So it's kind of like paid forward mentality. Find the guys that are willing to do that for you. Those are the guys you want to learn from, right? And then in today's day and age, everything is on the internet. You just got to know how to filter the expert from the experts in air quotes.
Yep. Love it. And you know, and a lot of people, which kind of shocks me that more people aren't willing to do this, you know, but if it's something I wanted to get involved in heavily, and let's just say I happen to be in your area, I'd go to you and be like, hey, Joseph, I'll commit 20 hours a week of my time, work for free for you, whatever you need. You know, just to learn the process and work for you for a year and have that apprenticeship and have that mentorship. And, you know, but it's crazy. Have you ever had anybody that's ever approached you with something like that?
Yes, I have, but very, very few of them actually followed through.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a lot of people that say, I want to learn, I want to do, I'll be there for you, but they're not there. And the way I look at it is you got to come in. If you come to me and say, hey, I'll do things for you for free, I wouldn't even know where to start giving you, right? I don't know, but you just said, okay, I'll give you 20 weeks. I can do this. I'm willing to do that, right? It helps a mentor look at you and say, okay, yeah, I can do that, right? So there is one guy that actually followed through with his offering, right? And I was in a spot where I needed a little bit of market research on a market we haven't been in. And so I showed him an email, say, hey, do you mind getting me a little market research? He went out and came back real fast with the information. Now, that was impressive, right? And we're still in touch, and and he has questions. I'll be happy to pay back the favor, right? So it's when you approach a mentor, and that's what I've always done myself, is bring value, right? Don't expect in returns. Don't look for anything else. Just bring value, right? And I have a few mentors in my life, and they're basically at a place where they're a little bit more advanced than me, right? But I tell them, I'll do due diligence. I'll be a boots on the ground. I will underwrite deals for you if that's what you want, right? And for free. I'm not asking for anything else because karma is good for business, right? We started with that. We're going to circle back to it. As you give, you're going to get back.
Yep. No, I love it. And then when you're finding a mentor, you know, because you said something there of you have mentors that are a little bit ahead of you, you know, right? Compared to maybe the a mentor that's 10x ahead of where you're at, right? I mean, is that something that is strategic on your behalf of finding, hey, maybe I need a mentor right now that's at 500 units, not at 5,000, right? But at 500, right? Where then that relatability is a little bit more there and you can grow instead of just, is that a strategic plan that you have that you've found to be effective and that you would recommend?
So it's not one that I had. And I did find myself in a conversation. It's funny that you mentioned that, in a conversation with a guy that is kind of like a different stratosphere than me. And, and I was kind of like the first equity raise we did. I was trying to figure it out and struggle through it a little bit. And that guy goes, well, what's the problem? Find a couple of guys, they can each write $1 million check and move on. And I was kind of like, okay, we're not in the same circles here, right? That advice is awesome, but I'm not there. But then I talked to another mentor of mine, and he's already done hundreds of thousands of units. And he goes, yeah, well, my first one was pretty rough as well, and here's how I did, and this is what I overcome, because he still remembered his first one, while the other guy was just in a different stratosphere.
Yeah.
Which hopefully I'll be there soon, but it's going to take me a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it, man. Love it. So then, on a personal level, with everything that you have going on, right? Because you've got, there's a lot to manage, and plus you have a life and you have a family and all of this. How do you personally keep it together on a day-to-day basis? I mean, do you have like an intentional daily planning, reflection, thing that you go through, and how do you stay focused and make sure that things aren't slipping through the cracks with that?
So I use a tool called Trello.
Okay.
It's basically like a software that is sticky notes. So I have a lot of sticky notes. I also have my goals, right? I have my 1-year goal, my 3-year goal, my 5 years goals, all the way up to my 10-year goals. And I review them often, right? And I want to make sure that I'm on track. And I like the book by Gary Keller called The One Thing. Yep. It really helps you kind of drive down. And I think there's a quote from Mark Twain that says, the only way to get ahead is to get started. And the only way to get started is to take what you need to do and break it down to small tasks and then just get started on one of them, right? So that's what it is. It's don't try to eat an elephant in one bite. Just take one bite at a time and you'll get there. So what's the most critical thing for you today? What's the 80-20 rule? What are the little tasks, the admin tasks, the things that you can get off your plate and hand over to I have a VA in the Philippines, right? So I can hand over a lot of the small tasks and the admin tasks to her while I focus on the next conversation with a broker or the next discussion with an investor or the next underwriting of a property that we're looking at as a potential purchase, right? So that's really what I do is I try to make sure that I keep the 80-20 rule in mind and that I keep my focus on where we want to go and how everything we do gets us forward towards that target. Yeah. And then on the family side, family is the most important thing in my life. And so if it means that we shut down the phone and just put it aside and this is family time, then we do that. We try to take the kids out on the weekends when the weather is great. And this is Texas, so a lot of the weekends the weather is great. So family comes first, and then everything else is keeping you focused.
Yeah, love it. So if the Joseph say, like, knowing everything you know now today, if you could go back to yourself when you first started this journey, to the younger version of yourself and give yourself 2 pieces of advice, knowing everything you know now that would have just really fast forwarded your trajectory of your success, what would those 2 pieces of advice look like?
Well, obviously 2008, it's the bottom, buy everything you can.
Yeah.
Right? The second one is I would probably tell myself, skip the education process on singles and go straight to multifamily.
Yeah.
That is something that even if I couldn't tell myself the first one, that it's the bottom by everything, is I would get myself exposed to that. And then one more thing that I strongly believe in, and I didn't know back then, and I wish I knew, is you are the average of the 5 people that you hang out the most with. And if you want to level up, you got to level up that group with you. So that's really strong. I am part of a mastermind group called Go Abundance today, which has a lot of really great guys in it. And it brings accountability. It brings a group of people that think like you, behave like you, have the same drive as you, and you're not having a what's my next business goal conversation with the guy that just want to go after work and watch the next Game of Thrones episode.
Yeah.
Right? And you got to find the right people to surround yourself with.
Yeah. No, love it. Couldn't agree more. All right. So then, just if those that are watching and listening, if they want to follow you, stay in touch with you, learn more about you, I know you're on a lot of other podcasts like you talked about, and I know you speak a lot, and where's the best place to, go be able to do that at?
Yeah. So our website, ebgacquisitions.com. That's the best way to find me, keep track of our portfolio and our latest acquisitions opportunities. And we have, of course, our emails and phones and all the social media links on the website. So ebgacquisitions.com. That's the best way to find us.
Love it. Love it. So, those that are watching and listening are here because they want to go out there and gain the knowledge base and the inspiration to go out there and create the life they know they truly want and deserve. Do you have any last words of advice or inspiration that you'd like to leave them with so they can do exactly that?
Yeah, it's really 90% mental and 10% work, right? So believe in yourself, write the goals, keep the goals in front of you at any given time. It's doable. I did all of my career. I've done both a 9-to-5 work and my real estate investment and my real estate business at the same time. And it's a lot, but it's doable. So really it's mental 90%.
Yeah. Love it. Couldn't agree more. Powerful words. And those that are watching, listen, I know I end every podcast with this, but information without implementation truly is the start of delusion. Information is no longer power. It's taking that information, taking action on it, that again creates that power in your life for you to create the life you know you want and deserve. And Joseph shared so many amazing pieces of advice with you guys today. Take something that you learned, take immediate action on it. So again, you can create that life you know you want and deserve. And Joseph, I know you're a super busy man. It's also right around that holiday time. So I know it's a busy time of year. So I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here. It's been a lot of fun.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep, 100%. All right, you guys, we will see you next time. Thank you.